Welcome back to the deep dive. Today is a special one. I want you to picture something for me. Picture a nation that is incredibly wealthy, just filthy rich. What comes to mind?
I think for most people, they picture a vault.
Exactly. Like a Scrooge McDuck situation. You picture a massive steel door, maybe underground, and behind it are just stacks of gold bars, chest after chest of silver coins, maybe some jewels thrown in for good measure.
Right.
We tend to think that a country is rich because it has a lot of money hoarded away.
Which is a very intuitive way to think. I mean, if I have $1 million under my mattress, I'm rich. So logic follows that if a country has $1 billion under its mattress, the country is rich.
But today we're diving into the book that basically told the world. You're looking this completely upside down. We're talking about Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. And the first thing we have to do is smash that vault door, right?
We do, because that vault, that obsession with hoarding gold, was actually the prevailing economic theory of the 18th century. It was called mercantilism.
Mercantilism.
Kings and queens thought that economics was a zero-sum game. If I buy wine from France, I have to give France my gold. So France wins and England loses.
So the goal was just to sell, 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 and never buy anything, just to sit on a pile of shiny metal.
Essentially, yes. And then in 1776, which is a pretty significant year for other reasons, Adam Smith publishes this massive inquiry, and he argues that wealth isn't the gold.
Okay, so what is it?
Wealth is the stuff.
The stuff.
It's the bread on your table, it's the coat on your back, it's the house you live in, it's the goods and services that are actually available to the average person in that society.
So if you have a vault full of gold, but your people are starving and have no shoes.
Your nation is poor. End of story.
That feels obvious now, but I guess at the time, that was a radical shift. It changes the goal from hoarding to production.
It was revolutionary. It shifted the focus from the king's treasury to the common man's quality of life. And that is really the mission of this deep dive. We aren't just summarizing a dusty old book. We're going to try to unpack the hidden machinery that makes all that production possible.
The engine of prosperity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do we go from a world where everyone is scratching a living out of the mud to a world where we have iPhones, antibiotics, and plentiful food? It's not magic. It's a mechanism.
And the guy explaining this mechanism, Adam Smith, I think we need to clarify who he was, because I picture a guy in a powdered wig doing calculus.
Well, the powdered wig part is right, but Smith wasn't an economist. I mean, that job title didn't really exist yet. He was a moral philosopher.
Which sounds a lot more like a guidance counselor than a Wall Street banker.
It's crucial context. Before The Wealth of Nations, he wrote The Theory of Moral Sentiments. He was obsessed with human psychology, ethics, and how people relate to one another.
So he wasn't looking at spreadsheets.
No, not at all. He's looking at human behavior. He's blending history, psychology, and philosophy to ask, how do we structure a society so that people, flawed, self-interested people, can actually thrive?
Okay, so let's get into the machinery. If wealth isn't gold, but production, how do we produce more? Smith starts with this incredibly famous example.
The pin factory.
The humble pin. It's such a tiny, boring object. Why did he choose pins?
Because it's simple enough to understand, but complex enough to show the process. He asks us to imagine a single person trying to make a pin from scratch.
Okay, I'm the worker, I'm untrained, I have a lump of metal.
Good luck. You have to draw out the wire, then you have to straighten it, which is harder than it looks. Then you have to cut it, then sharpen one end.
Okay.
Then you have to grind the other end to make a head. Then you have to actually make the head, which is a whole separate piece of metal, then attach it. Then polish it.
I'm exhausted just listening to that list.
Smith estimated that a worker trying to do this alone, even if they were working hard, might make 1 pin a day.
1 pin.
Maybe 20 if they were really, really pushing it.
20 pins. That's not exactly going to supply the nation.
No. But then Smith visits a factory where they have implemented what he calls the division of labor.
The multiplier effect.
Right. Instead of one guy doing everything, they split the process into, I think it was 18 distinct operations. One guy's entire job is just drawing the wire. That's it. All day.
Another guy just straightens it.
Another guy cuts it, another points it, and so on. He observed a small factory of just 10 men working this way.
And what was the output?
Those 10 men produced 48,000 pins in a day.
Wait, let me do the math on that. That's 4,800 pins per person.
Compared to maybe 1 or 20.
That is.
Yeah.
That's a 240-fold increase?
Yeah.
That's insane. It's the same 10 guys. They didn't suddenly get superpowers. They didn't drink 10 cups of coffee.
We just organized the work differently. This is the first gear of the engine of wealth. Specialization.
But why? I mean, why does chopping the job up make it that much faster? Feels like it should be a little faster, sure,
Yeah.
but 240 times faster.
Smith identifies 3 specific channels or reasons for this explosion in productivity. The first is what he calls dexterity.
Skill.
Imagine you are the guy who straightens the wire,
Yeah.
and you do it 10,000 times a day.
I would be incredibly bored.
You would be bored out of your mind, but your hands would develop a muscle memory that is almost supernatural. You would be able to straighten wire faster than the eye can follow.
That's true.
A generalist who only does it for 10 minutes a day can never achieve that speed.
It's like watching a professional chef chop an onion versus watching me do it. I'm scared I'm going to lose a finger, so I go slow. They just go tap, 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 and it's done.
Exactly. Deep specialization creates extreme competence in that specific task. The second reason is time. Specifically, the time lost in switching tasks.
The switching cost. We talk about that all the time.
We do. If you're the solo pin maker, every time you finish cutting the wire, you have to put down the cutters, you have to walk over to the grinding reel, you have to pick up the file.
You have to mentally shift gears from cutting mode to grinding mode.
Smith calls this sauntering, right? He says that when a man moves from one type of work to another, he is prone to saunter.
Sauntering. I like that.
You hesitate a bit, you gaze out the window, you lose your momentum. By doing one thing all day, you eliminate all that downtime. You're just in the flow.
It's funny because we talk about this in modern productivity advice all the time. Don't multitask.
Yeah.
Batch your emails. Smith figured this out watching guys make pins in the 1700s.
Human nature hasn't changed. We lose focus when we switch contexts. And the third reason is perhaps the most interesting: innovation.
Invention.
Smith argued that when your attention is focused entirely on one small, repetitive problem, you are much more likely to figure out a way to solve it better.
Because you're the one suffering through the friction of it every single day.
Precisely. If you're doing 18 different things, you don't spend enough time on any one of them to get annoyed enough to invent a solution. But if your whole life is cutting wire, eventually you think, I bet I could rig up a lever to do this for me.
Okay.
Smith believed a lot of early industrial machinery was invented by the workers themselves, trying to save their own effort.
So specialization leads to mechanization.
It paves the way for it. Once a task is broken down into simple, repetitive movements, it's much easier to build a machine to do it.
Okay, so this division of labor is powerful. It explains why we have so much stuff. But it's not just for factories, is it?
Oh, no. Not at all. It applies to everything. Look at modern medicine.
Right. If I have a rare heart condition, I don't want to see a guy who also fixes broken legs and delivers babies.
You want a cardiologist, and maybe not even just a cardiologist. You want an electrophysiologist who specializes in the electrical impulses of the upper left ventricle.
That depth of knowledge, that ability to save my life, is only possible because he didn't have to learn how to fix a broken leg.
Exactly. He traded breadth for depth. And because we have thousands of doctors specializing in different tiny slices of the body, the total amount of medical knowledge in society is massive.
Way more than any single human could hold.
Far more. Same with tech. I was thinking about app development. You don't just have a computer guy anymore.
No. You have a UI designer, a UX researcher, a back-end engineer, a database architect, a security specialist, a DevOps engineer.
If one person tried to build a modern, secure, scalable banking app from scratch,
It would take 10 years and it would be terrible.
it would be a mess. The complexity of our modern world is built entirely on this fracturing of tasks.
But there is a limit, isn't there?
Yeah.
I can't just decide to be a specialist in left-handed screwdrivers and expect to get rich.
Yes. This is the constraint. Smith calls it the extent of the market.
The size of the customer base.
Go back to our pin factory. They are making 48,000 pins a day. That is amazing productivity, but it creates a new...
We have to sell 48,000 pins a day.
Exactly. If you're in a small village of 500 people, a single day of production supplies the village for 10 years. You have no market. So in a small village, you cannot specialize.
The village blacksmith has to be a generalist.
He makes horseshoes, nails, pots, pans. Maybe he pulls teeth on the weekend. He does whatever comes through the door because there isn't enough demand for just nails to keep him alive.
So specialization requires a big crowd.
This is why cities are wealth engines. When you have 1 million people in one place, you can have a guy who only makes violin bridges, or a lawyer who only does maritime patent law. The market is big enough to support that niche.
And this connects to geography, doesn't it? I remember Smith talks a lot about water.
He does. Before trains and trucks, water was the only way to move heavy stuff cheaply. If you were in a landlocked village in the mountains, your market was just your neighbors.
But if you were in London or Amsterdam or New York,
You had the ocean.
Yeah.
You could sell your pins to the entire world. That massive market allowed those coastal cities to specialize aggressively, which made them incredibly productive, which made them rich.
so, okay, we have all these people specializing. The wire guy, the point guy, the violin bridge guy. They're all doing their tiny piece of the puzzle. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. Who is organizing this?
Right. There's no master of industry sitting in a tower shouting, "We need more violin bridges. Stop making nails."
It seems like chaos. You have millions of people making billions of decisions. How does it not collapse?
This brings us to the most famous phrase in all of economics, the invisible hand.
I feel like we need to clear the air on this one, because people use this phrase to mean all sorts of things.
They do. Some people think it's a religious thing. Some people think it's a justification for pure greed. But Smith meant something very specific. It's a metaphor for coordination.
Unintended coordination.
Precisely. He has this line, and it's probably the most quoted line in the book. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest.
So the butcher isn't cutting meat because he wants me to be well fed.
No, he doesn't care about your hunger. He cares about his rent. He cares about feeding his own kids. He's acting out of self-interest.
But, and here's the magic trick, the only way he can help himself is by helping me.
That's the key. He can't mug you. That's illegal. So to get your money, he has to offer you something you want at a price you are willing to pay. He has to serve you to serve himself.
So by pursuing his own profit, he is led by an invisible hand to benefit society.
He produces the food we need, not because he is a saint, but because he is a businessman. Smith's insight was that you don't need a central planner to force people to help each other.
You just need a system where helping others is in your own best interest.
Yes.
But how does the butcher know what to help me with? How does he know I want steak and not chicken today? How does the system balance itself?
The price system.
The signals.
Think of prices as a massive global telecommunications network. It's sending data constantly to everyone all at once.
Walk me through this. Let's say there's a disaster.
Okay, let's look at the disaster scenario. This is a classic example. Imagine a hurricane hits the coast of Florida. Massive damage. Roofs are blown off.
So suddenly everyone in Florida needs plywood.
Demand skyrockets. Supply is low. What happens to the price of plywood in Florida?
It goes through the roof.
No, people usually get angry about this. They call it price gouging. They want the government to freeze the price at, say, $10 a sheet.
Because it feels unfair. It feels like exploitation.
It feels terrible. But look at it from the perspective of the invisible hand. That high price is a signal. It is a flashing red light visible to the entire country.
A guy with a lumber yard in Ohio sees that price.
A guy who doesn't care about Florida at all sees that plywood is selling for $100 a sheet down there, and he thinks, I can make a killing.
So he loads up his truck.
He pays his drivers overtime. He drives all night. He diverts supplies that were going to go to Michigan. He rushes that wood to Florida.
He's doing it for greed.
100% for profit.
Hi.
But what is the result? Plywood arrives in Florida exactly when it is needed most. The high price acted as a magnet, pulling resources from where they were abundant to where they were scarce.
And if the government had frozen the price at $10,
The guy in Ohio stays home. He's not going to drive all night for a regular profit. And the people in Florida have no wood to rebuild their homes.
so the price signal coordinated the logistics without any government official having to make a single phone call.
It coordinates what we call dispersed knowledge. No single person knows where all the wood is and where all the roofs are. But the price system aggregates all that information into a single number.
Smith talks about this regarding the complexity of everyday objects, right? Like a pencil.
The eye pencil concept, which came later but is based on Smith's logic, is profound. Look at a pencil. It seems simple. Wood, graphite, paint, rubber, a little metal band.
But who knows how to make one?
Nobody, not a single person on Earth. The wood came from a cedar tree in Oregon. The logger used a chainsaw. Who made the chainsaw? That required steel. Who mined the iron ore for the steel? Who processed it?
The graphite came from a mine in Sri Lanka. The rubber came from a tree in Malaysia.
It's a global symphony of thousands of people who will never meet. The logger doesn't know the miner. The miner doesn't know the chemist who made the yellow paint. They might hate each other. They might speak different languages.
But the market coordinated them all to produce this object that you can buy for, what, 10 cents?
And if you tried to do it yourself from scratch?
You couldn't. You would spend your whole life trying to mine graphite and cut trees,
Yeah.
and you'd end up with a mess.
The division of labor plus the invisible hand allows us to access the brain power of the entire species.
That is actually kind of beautiful when you frame it that way. It's a cooperative system disguised as a competitive one.
That's the paradox at the heart of it.
Okay, so we're efficient because of the division of labor, and we're coordinated because of the invisible hand. But how do we get richer? How do we grow? Because a medieval peasant could be efficient, but he was still poor.
Right. We need an engine of growth. We need capital accumulation.
Segment 3. This is the part where we stop just trading and start building.
Smith describes what he calls a virtuous cycle. It starts with something very boring. Savings.
Deferred gratification. Not eating the marshmallow.
Exactly. Imagine a farmer. He grows 100 bushels of wheat. If he and his family eat all 100 bushels, they survive. But they are at zero. They have nothing left.
Subsistence living. Hand to mouth.
But let's say they tighten their belts. They only eat 80 bushels. They save 20.
Now they have surplus.
Now they have capital. They can use that surplus to pay a neighbor to help clear more land. Or, better yet, they can use it to buy a tool, a better plow.
And this is the key distinction Smith makes between just money and capital. Capital is productive.
Yes. Smith distinguishes between fixed capital, like the plow, the barn, the machine, and circulating capital, like the seed or the wages you pay. But the magic happens with the fixed capital.
Because the plow makes the farmer more productive.
Right. With the new plow, next year he doesn't grow 100 bushels, he grows 150.
So now he has a surplus of 70 if he eats 80 again.
And he reinvests that. He buys a tractor or an irrigation system. Now he grows 500 bushels.
It compounds.
It compounds. This is why the Industrial Revolution happened. It wasn't just that we invented steam engines. We had been inventing things for centuries.
Right.
It was that society had finally accumulated enough capital, enough saved up surplus to afford to build the factories, to mine the coal, to build the railroads.
You could have the blueprint for a railroad, but if you don't have the savings to pay the workers for 5 years while they lay the track, you don't get a railroad.
Exactly. Capital is the fuel that turns technology into reality. And Smith points out that this applies to people, too.
Human capital.
Think about a doctor again. A medical student spends 10 years not earning money. In fact, they are spending money. They are burning through capital.
They're investing in themselves.
They're building a machine in their brain. And once that machine is built, their productivity and their income skyrockets. They are capitalizing their own labor.
So if a country wants to be rich, it needs to encourage savings and investment.
If you consume everything you produce immediately, you will stay poor forever. You have to save to build the tools that make you rich.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've been talking about a factory or a farmer or a nation. But Smith was writing The Wealth of Nations, plural. He was looking at the whole world.
Segment 4, global trade.
This is where things get controversial. Even today.
Especially today.
Smith introduces a concept that is honestly pretty hard to get your head around. Comparative advantage.
It is the most counterintuitive idea in economics.
Most of us get absolute advantage. If I'm great at growing grapes, like France, and you're great at raising sheep, like Scotland, we should trade. I give you wine, you give me wool. Simple.
That's easy. But Smith asks the harder question. What if I am better than you at everything?
Right. What if I'm a supernation? I'm better at tech A&D, better at manufacturing A&D, better at farming. Why on earth should I trade with you? Seems like I'd lose.
This is where the lawyer and the assistant analogy comes in. It's the standard way to explain this because it works so well.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine a top-tier corporate lawyer. She is brilliant. She bills her time at $1,000 an hour.
Nice work if you can get it.
But she also happens to be a world-class typist. She can type 120 words per minute.
Okay, so she's good at everything.
She has an administrative assistant. He is.
Okay.
He types 60 words per minute. He's half as fast as she is.
So the lawyer is better at law, A&D.
Oh.
She is better in typing. She has an absolute advantage in both tasks.
So should she fire the assistant and do her own typing? She's faster, after all.
My gut says maybe. I mean, if she can bang out the brief in half the time, isn't that efficient?
Think about the cost, not the money, but the opportunity costs.
What she's giving up.
Exactly. If she spends 1 hour typing a document, she saves herself the cost of the assistant. Let's say that's $30. Which
But she loses the hours she could have spent practicing law.
is worth $1,000. So by doing her own typing, she is essentially burning $970.
Ouch. Okay, put that way, it's a terrible deal.
It's a disaster. Even though she's better at typing, her comparative advantage is in law. That is where her value is highest.
Right.
The assistant is a worse typist, but his comparative advantage is typing because his opportunity cost is low. He isn't giving up a $1,000 legal hour to type.
So they trade. She pays him to type, she focuses on law, and they both make more money than if they worked alone.
Now apply this to nations. This is the breakthrough. Let's say the U.S. is better at making software A&D, better at making T-shirts than a developing nation.
We have better machines, better cotton, whatever, an absolute advantage.
But the value add of the software is astronomical. A software engineer creates millions of dollars of value. A T-shirt is.
Wow.
Well, it's a T-shirt.
So every hour the U.S. spends making T-shirts is an hour we aren't writing code.
It's the lawyer typing. The opportunity cost is too high. So the U.S. should focus on software and trade with the developing nation for T-shirts. Even though the U.S. could make the shirts faster, it makes economic sense to let someone else do it.
And the result is that the world gets more software and more shirts. The total pie gets bigger.
Yes. We are utilizing the world's resources most efficiently.
But, and this is a huge but, one that we feel very acutely right now, there is a catch.
The pain points.
When we say the U.S. benefits, we're talking about the U.S. as a generic aggregate. We're talking about the GDP.
Correct. The math works for the nation, but notice who loses in our story. If the U.S. stops making T-shirts to focus on software, what happens to the U.S. T-shirt maker?
He loses his job. He doesn't magically become a software engineer overnight.
Exactly. He is the casualty of that efficiency. His factory closes, his town might dry up.
And you can't tell him, don't worry, the GDP's up 3%. He can't eat GDP.
This is the tension. And Smith recognized that trade creates winners and losers within the country. The lawyer wins. The software engineer wins. The consumer who gets cheap shirts wins. But the sector that competed with the imports gets crushed.
So it's the answer. Stop trading. Build a wall.
Smith would say no, because if you stop trading, you make everyone poorer in the long run. You force the lawyer to type. You force the U.S. to make expensive shirts. Prices go up. Growth slows down.
So you keep the trade, but you handle the fallout.
You focus on the transition, education, safety nets, retraining programs. You use the extra wealth generated by trade to help the people who were displaced by it, but you don't smash the machine just because it hurts your toe.
It's a hard sell, though. Transition is a nice word for your life is going to be really hard for a while.
It is, and that's why free trade is always politically difficult, even if it is economically undeniable.
Okay, moving to segment 5. We've produced the wealth, we've traded for it. Now who gets to keep it? We're talking distribution, wages, and profit.
Smith breaks society down into the classic factors of production: land, labor, and capital. But let's focus on why people get paid what they get paid.
Why does a hedge fund manager make more than a teacher? Is it just random?
Smith argues it's about supply and demand, but filtered through a few key factors. He lists 5, but let's look at the big ones. First, cost of training.
This goes back to human capital.
Right. If a job requires you to study for years, like a lawyer or a doctor, the wages must be high enough to pay you back for that time and expense. If they weren't, nobody would bother studying.
So the high wage is a reimbursement for the investment.
Partially. Second factor, agreeableness or unpleasantness.
The dirty jobs factor.
Smith points out that if a job is disgusting, dangerous, or socially looked down upon, you have to pay people a premium to do it.
Like the guys who climb those 2,000-foot TV towers to change light bulbs.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me enough to do that.
Exactly. The supply of people willing to do it is low, so the price, their wage, is high. Conversely, if a job is fun or prestigious like being a musician or an actor, people will do it for almost nothing.
So the cool tax is real. You get paid less because the job is its own reward.
Often, yes. And the third factor is the probability of success.
Risk.
If you try to be a lawyer, you'll probably be a lawyer. If you try to be a professional data scientist, you'll probably get a job. But if you try to be a rock star...
99.9% failure rate.
So the one guy who makes it has to be paid astronomically well to balance out the thousands who tried and failed. It's a lottery system.
Okay, that covers wages. What about profit? The money the business owner makes.
Smith has a very interesting view on this. He sees profit as dynamic. It's a signal, just like a price.
Explain that.
Imagine a new industry starts up, let's say, artificial intelligence right now.
It's booming. Companies are making fortunes.
High risk, high reward. There is little competition, so profits are massive. But what does that profit signal do?
It attracts sharks.
It attracts competitors. Everyone sees the money and jumps in. Google, Microsoft, Meta, countless startups. Capital floods into the sector.
And as they compete,
Prices fall. And as prices fall, profits shrink. Smith argues that in a healthy, mature market, profits should actually be quite low.
that's fascinating. So if a company is making obscene profits for decades, it implies the market is broken.
It implies a monopoly or a cartel or some barrier that is stopping competition from doing its job. High profit is meant to be self-correcting.
So we have this delicate ecosystem, workers, capitalists, consumers, and usually the market balances them. But sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes the invisible hand drops the ball.
Segment 6, the role of the state.
Now, you will hear people say Smith was a libertarian, an anarchist. Government is the problem.
Laissez-faire, hands off.
But if you actually read the book, Smith sees the government as absolutely essential.
What's job number 1 for the state?
Justice, protecting property rights.
The referee.
If I can't trust that the land I buy is mine, or that the contract I sign will be enforced by a court, I am not going to invest. I'm not going to build a factory if a warlord can just come take it.
So the market relies on the rule of law. It can't exist without it.
Correct. But Smith goes further. He identifies market failures, things the market simply cannot do on its own.
Public goods.
Take the lighthouse. This is the classic textbook example. A lighthouse is vital for trade. It saves ships. But think about it from a business perspective. Can a private company build a lighthouse for profit?
How would you charge for it? You can't run a boat out to every captain who sees the light and demand $5.
Exactly. Once the light is on, everyone sees it for free. It's non-excludable, so there's no way to make money from it.
So the private market says, not building it.
But society says, we need it. So the government has to step in, tax everyone, and build the lighthouse. The same logic applies to national defense, basic scientific research, city streets.
Then you have externalities.
Pollution is the big one here. If a factory dumps toxic sludge into the river, they are saving money on waste disposal. Their private cost is low.
But the social cost, the town downstream getting sick, is high.
The market price of their product doesn't reflect that sickness. It's a failure of the price mechanism. So the government has to step in with a tax or a regulation to force the factory to pay for the damage, to internalize the externality.
So Smith wasn't against regulation. He was for the right regulation.
He wanted rules that made the market work better, not rules that strangled it.
But, and here's the other side of the coin, he was also deeply skeptical of politicians.
Oh, he didn't trust them at all. This brings us to government failure.
Just because the market fails doesn't mean the government will fix it correctly.
Smith warned about what we now call regulatory capture.
When the referee's on the payroll of the players.
Exactly. He noticed that often when merchants asked for a new law for the good of the public, they are actually asking for a monopoly.
Oh, please regulate this industry so that no new competitors can enter and I can keep my prices high.
Right. Protect the consumer by banning my cheaper rivals. Smith said we should examine any law proposed by businessmen with the most suspicious attention.
That is fantastic advice, still is.
He understood that politicians have incentives too. They want power. They want money. They want votes. And those incentives don't always align with the public good.
So it's a balancing act. Markets fail. Governments fail. We have to navigate between the two.
It's about choosing the least bad option for this specific problem at hand.
All right, segment 7. If the government is going to do all this, courts, lighthouses, armies, it needs cash.
The inevitable topic. Taxation.
Smith devotes a huge chunk of the book to this. He was very practical. He laid out 4 maxims of taxation, 4 rules for how to pluck the goose without killing it.
Maxim 1. Proportionality. Fairness.
The rich should pay more.
He argued that you should pay in proportion to the revenue you enjoy under the protection of the state. If you have a lot to protect, you pay a lot for the protection.
Maxim 2.
Certainty.
This one is huge for entrepreneurs. You need to know exactly what you owe and when.
No surprises from the taxman.
If the tax bill depends on the mood of the tax collector that day, or if the rules change every month, you can't plan. You can't run a business. Uncertainty kills investment.
Maxim 3. Convenience.
Tax people when it is easy for them to pay. Don't tax a farmer in the spring when he's buying seeds and is broke. Tax him in the autumn after the harvest when he has cash.
Smart. And Maxim 4. Efficiency.
Don't spend $1 to collect $1. If you have to hire an army of tax inspectors to go door to door and their salaries eat up all the tax revenue, it's a stupid tax.
He also talks about bad taxes, the unintended consequences.
Dead weight loss. This is when a tax causes people to do crazy things to avoid it, which hurts the economy more than it helps the government.
The window tax comes to mind.
A classic historical example. In England, they decided to tax houses based on the number of windows. The logic was, rich people have big houses with lots of windows. Poor people have small cottages. It's a progressive tax.
Sounds logical on paper.
But what happened? People didn't just pay the tax, they bricked up their windows
They chose to live in the dark.
to save a few pounds. So the government got less revenue than they expected, and the population got rickets and depression from lack of sunlight.
That is a perfect example of a policy backfiring because you ignored human behavior.
Smith's point is that taxes change behavior. If you tax income too high, people might stop working. If you tax windows, people block them up. You have to design the system carefully to raise money without distorting the economy.
So we have covered a massive amount of ground here. We've gone from the wire cutter in the pin factory to the window bricker in London.
We have.
Let's try to synthesize this.
Okay.
What is the big takeaway? If I'm listening to this and I want to sound smart at a dinner party, what is the core message of the Wealth of Nations?
I think the core message is that prosperity isn't an accident. It's a system.
It's a machine we built.
It's a machine built on human nature. Smith realized that you don't need to change people. You don't need to make everyone selfless and noble. You just need to build institutions, markets, laws, property rights that channel our natural self-interest into cooperation.
You take the energy of, I want a better life, and you route it through the engine of, I have to serve others to get it.
Exactly. And when that engine runs, it lifts everyone. It turns the peasant into the modern citizen.
I want to leave the listener with a thought experiment, a little homework.
Go for it.
Look around the room you are in right now. Pick one object. Maybe it's the coffee cup on your desk. Maybe it's the sneakers on your feet.
Okay.
Trace it back. Think about the cotton farmer in Egypt, the rubber tapper in Brazil, the designer in Oregon, the sailor on the container ship in the Pacific. Think about the massive machines, the accumulated capital that stitched that shoe. Think about the price signals that told the store to stock it.
It is a miracle of coordination.
It really is.
Yeah.
We take it for granted. We walk into a store and expect the shelves to be full. But that fullness is the result of millions of people cooperating without knowing it.
And the question is, are we taking care of that machine?
Right. Are we maintaining the rule of law? Are we keeping the markets open? Are we investing in the capital, human and physical, that keeps it running? Or are we assuming it runs on magic?
Because if we forget how the pin factory works, the pins stop coming.
That is a sobering thought to end on. Adam Smith, 1776, still relevant.
More than ever.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.